So what happens to Viktor Yanukovych now? Let's ask an expert on international law. David Crane was the chief prosecutor of the Special Court for Sierra Leone, the one that indicted former Liberian President Charles Taylor on war crimes. Crane is now a law professor at Syracuse University, and he joins us by Skype in New York. So, sir, Ukraine's prosecutors say they will ask Russia to extradite Yanukovych. What's the possibility of that actually happening?
Well, Andrew, it's not going to happen. I don't believe that there is any basis that the Russians will hand over their former president to them for some type of judicial proceedings. I just don't see it happening.
And now Yanukovych says he had a very long news conference this morning saying that he never instructed Ukrainian police to shoot at protesters. Do you believe him when he says that? And how will that play out in terms of his prosecution?
Well, again, that remains to be seen in an investigation that should be conducted by the Ukrainian government under their rule of law to determine the facts. And then from there, the facts will determine what needs to be done under Ukrainian law as to the president and his actions.
Is there a point that the International Criminal Court would get involved or should get involved?
Well, at this point in time, the facts are sketchy. I believe the ICC, an important international body, might get involved maybe someday if it's shown that there was more than just local direction as to a riot taking place, if this was a consistent government policy, a widespread or systematic attempt to target civilians, perhaps. But I think it's more appropriate for the Ukrainians to determine the facts and to decide under Ukrainian law what they would like to do. I do not think that the ICC would get involved.
Yanukovych says that he'll return to Ukraine once he receives international safety guarantees. Will the international community give him those guarantees?
Well, of course, that's rhetoric by a politician, and that remains to be seen. I doubt that the international community even has the power to give him those guarantees.
Now, authorities in Switzerland, as I was just mentioning as I introduced you, announced today that they've launched a corruption investigation against Yanukovych and his son, Alexander, and blocked their assets. Right? What criteria does the country need to take those steps?
Well, of course, under Swiss law, they do have a right to look at the assets. If it appears that these assets were inappropriately gained under Swiss law, they can go in and get a proceeding to have those assets seized. We did similar types of things against Charles Taylor and his henchmen with the Swiss back in 2004 to do the very same thing.
And so, do you think Ukrainians should be optimistic that they'll be able to recover what looks like to be billions, tens of billions of dollars that has just gone missing from public coffers?
Well, it certainly looks like he was living rather expensively, and there appears to be indications of corruption. That remains to be seen as to whether they'll ever recover it, but any assets that are found in any country under that country's domestic law can be seized, and through proceedings, perhaps someday those billions of dollars might be returned to the Ukrainian people.
And so what do you think is next for Yanukovych?
Well, he'll remain in Russia, and it looks like we are approaching a very, very grave time in international law, but also just geopolitically. It's the most dangerous situation that I've seen in years because we have a potential of Europe versus Russia, NATO versus Russia, and the United States versus Russia. The question that is rumbling around all the capitals, are we going to go to war with Russia over the Ukraine? This is a very, very dangerous time.
And do you believe that that's a possibility?
I cannot speculate. The scenario is horrific to contemplate. Frankly, I don't think that will happen, and I can't think that Russia would push this to the brink of war, particularly after the Sochi Olympic Games. There's too much to lose here politically to see that happen. But, you know, under President Putin, it remains to be seen. He's flexing his muscle. He's feeling good. And, you know, if you look at Russian history, the Ukraine has always been within that Russian orbit. And let's put it this way. I personally wouldn't hopefully it doesn't happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see more and further Russian involvement in the eastern portion of that country.
All right, David, thank you very much. That's international law expert and university professor David Crane with us by Skype from New York.